Hello everybody and welcome to day 10, our penultimate day of our Beadalong. If you have made it this far in real time, then congratulations. If you've made it this far and you're doing it later, congratulations. So our final little motif for this Beadalong, it was not originally going to be this. I was originally going to do a crab, and I felt like it was going to be a little too challenging with all the legs and everything. So instead I switched to a sea turtle, and then I asked you guys what you thought it was going to be, and like 60% of you thought it was going to be a sea turtle. So I'm kind of glad I switched at the last minute. So here is our little sea turtle that we're going to be making today. And he has a light colored belly because sea turtles do have lighter colored bellies, so that when they're swimming above fish in the ocean, you know, they're harder to spot because the sky, you know, the sun is above them and they have darker mottled spots, so they blend in with the bottom. He is quite, he's probably the most challenging thing in the Beadalong actually. And he requires a few materials. So you're gonna need 10 superduos for the top and his head. You're going to need 7 light colored superduos for his underbelly, okay? You're going to need some 11-0s. These are Miyuki 337. And you're going to need some lighter colored 11-0s. So right here and here, I'm going to use a different color on those, on his underbelly. Just to kind of round that out a little more. And you're going to need some 8-0s. So here I'm using, these are actually Toho 68F, which I believe is Ox Blood Red, I think, frosted. And then I've also got some 8-0s, again, Toho number 147 that I'm using. And these are Miyuki 594 that I'm the other 11s. So my 11s are Miyuki, my 8s are Toho, and my super duos are whoever makes super duo. So, okay. Oh, you will also need 2 11-0s in black for his eyes. I completely forgot to put those out. So sorry. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. I have put on a stop bead, just an 8-0, and I'm using Fireline 6 pound in smoke, and I have a size 11 beading needle. You could also use something like KO, Miyuki, any of those type of threads would work as well. So dragon thread, whatever, okay? The thread is not that important in this project. Okay, so make sure that you've checked all your holes in your super duos before you start. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick up 5 super duos. I'm using this very pretty mix. I'm just pushing those down to my stop bead. And then I'm also gonna pick up 4 11-0s. Okay, so 4. And I'm also going to push those down. And then I'm going to look at my super duos here, and I'm going to sew down the other hole of the top super duo where I'm coming out. So I'm sewing away from the beads. Okay, just like this. Make a little loop. Then I'm going to pick up another super duo, and you're going to push your second one out of the way, and you're going to sew into your second hole here. So what I want is, I want my one I've picked up on my needle is going to go right in here. So I'm sewing down through the 3rd one. So you have this. Okay. Same thing again for the 4th one. I'm going to push him out of the way, and I'm going to push my 5th one over so it lines up. I'm going to pick up one more super duo, and I'm going to sew into that 5th super duo, the 2nd hole. Okay, so we now have something that looks like this, okay? Now I'm going to take off my stop bead, and I'm going to pick up 2 more super duos on my thread. So 2 more. So we should only have 1 left. That one's going to be for our head, so you can put him off to the side. Okay, and now I'm going to tie my tail and my working thread together. So I'm just tying a square knot. Just a right over left and a left over right. Okay, so those are tied together. And it's okay if these 2 are a little bit like flapping around. That's kind of what you want. Don't pull them too tight, okay? Then you may want to weave in your tail because it does get in the way. All right, so once we've done that, we're going to sew through the first 2 super duos behind this area right here. So just keep going in the same direction you were going. So we just tied, you know, we added those 2 and we're going back up the back of this turtle, okay? And then we're going to turn and we're going to sew into the outside hole in the other direction. So I'm coming out the inner hole of this one, going this way. So I'm now sewing into the same super duo, this gold one, going this way, okay? So I've turned around. All right, I'm gonna very quickly weave in this tail so it's not in my way, and then I'll come back. Okay, so we're now going to begin filling out our little turtle here. So you're gonna go ahead and pick up an 11, an 8, and an 11. And you're gonna sew into the first of those 2 super duos that are just hanging out there. Just go into the outside hole. Now we're gonna pick up an 11, 2 8s and an 11. So 11, 2 8s, 11, and you're going to sew over to this next one here. Okay. And then we're going to pick up again an 11, an 8, and an 11, and sew into the next super duo. Here we're just going to pick up an 8. Pick up 1 8, go into the next super duo. Then we're going to pick up 2 11s. And here it's a little bit different. We're going to sew into the super duo again. So I'm coming out the top here and I'm going to sew into the bottom. And that's just going to put 2 little beads on the side right there. And we're going to need that later. Okay, and now we're going to pick up an 8 and an 11. And we're going to sew into this very first 11 of this group of 4 here. And then we're going to skip the 2nd and the 3rd on that group, and we're just going to sew down the 4th. And that's going to help pull those 2 beads a little bit tighter together, okay? Then we're going to pick up an 11 and an 8. We're going to go into this outer super duo right here, the outer hole. we're going to pick up 2 more 11s. And we're going to go through that superduo again. So we're just repeating what we did on the other side. And then we're going to pick up an 8 and we're going to go through that superduo right there. So you should have the beginning of your shell looking like this. Okay, so now we're going to sew forward until we're exiting the next superduo. So just sew through the 11, the 8, and the 11 and the superduo. Okay, and here we're going to pick up 2 11s just like we did up above earlier. We're going to sew through that superduo again, and then you can continue through the first 11 and the 8-0. Okay, so I'm going through the superduo again, the 11 and the 8-0. Here I'm just going to add 1 little 8-0. It's going to kind of represent his tail, okay? And we're going to sew through the 8, the 11, and the next superduo. And then I'm going to pick up 2 more 11s and sew through that superduo again. So I'm just going through the superduo. Okay, and those are just going to hang out on the side. Those are going to be the beginning of his back flippers. Okay, so now we're going to turn. We're coming out the superduo here. We're going to turn and go into it, going backwards towards his tail, the inner hole of that superduo, okay? And here we're going to pick up another 8-0 because there's kind of a gap here, so we're going to cover that up. So pick up another 8-0 and go into the second hole of the other superduo by his tail. Okay. And you can kind of straighten that up a little bit. Okay, so that's just going to sit in there for now. Okay, so now we're going to pick up another 8-0, and I'm coming out of the inner hole of this superduo right here. I'm going to sew into the outer hole of this superduo. And just like the 8-0 that we just added a minute ago, we want that to kind of hide that space there. Okay, so it's not going to be flush. It is going to sit up a little bit. That's okay. We're just kind of disguising that gappy bit, okay? Okay, so now we're exiting from this superduo here. We're going to pick up 2 11-0s. We're going to start filling out his body, and we're going to add the beginning of his head, okay? So pick up 2 11-0s and sew into the next 2 11-0s that we added around this superduo here, okay? And then you're going to sew through the 8-0. And those are just going to sit there like that. Then we're going to pick up 3 11-0s. And we're going to sew through this 8-0 again. And then we're going to sew through these 3 beads here. So the 2 here, and then the first one coming out of his neck here, okay? This is his neck. So sew through that 8-0 again, and then through those 3 beads I just showed you. And they're just going to make a little loop right there like that. And that's the beginning of his front fin. Okay, so I'm coming out, if this is his neck here, okay, I'm coming out the first bead here on the side. We're going to pick up a superduo, so our last superduo, one of our eye beads, an 8/0, and another eye bead. Okay, so superduo, eye, 8/0, eye. Okay, push all that down, and then you're going to sew into the second hole of the superduo and the other bead on his neck. So I'm coming out the left hand bead, I'm going to sew into the right hand bead and down those 2 beads right there. Okay, this is going to be the beginning of his face or his head. We will come back and add more in a minute, but just get that bit on. Okay, so beginning of his head. Now we're going to sew through the next 11 and the 8/0, and just like we did on the other side, we're going to pick up 3 seed beads, 3 11s. We're going to sew through that 8/0 again, and then we're going to sew down the next 2 seed beads right here. Pick up 2 more seed beads and sew into this superduo. Okay. And then we're going to pick up an 8/0. Just like we did here, we need to add one right here, and we're going to go into the inner hole, so that's like where his tail is. So go through the superduo and the 8/0. Okay, so that should be sitting up a little bit, just like the one on the other side. Okay, and we're coming out from this 8/0 right here. I'm going to sew through these 2 8/0s at his back right here. And then I'm going to sew through that 8/0 again. Okay. And that's just going to help kind of attach that on a little bit better. Okay, so we're ready to add his first dorsal fin. So we're going to, I guess that's what these back flippers, his first back flipper, I don't know if they're called dorsal fins, I totally made that up. Okay, we're coming out from this upper 8/0 on his back. So go ahead and sew into the superduo. Yeah, I think they're just called flippers, not fins. I don't know. Fins are on fish, right? Okay. I'm struggling to get through there. I think it's my bent needle that's causing me difficulty. Okay. Once you've got through the inner hole, you're going to go into the outer hole of that superduo. Just turn direction. So if you're coming out towards me, I'm going in away from me just to get to the outer hole. Okay. And then I'm going to enter into this first 11/0. Sorry, yeah, 11. That's an 11 right here. Okay. So I'm going to pick up 3 11s, and I'm going to sew into the second bead right here, and it's going to look like this. Okay, I'm going to go through the superduo again. And then I'm going to go up the first 2 beads right here. Okay, so I should have 2 on one side and 3 on the other side. I'm going to pick up 3 more. And I'm going to go up the first 2 beads on the side with 3, okay? This is kind of what we were doing yesterday with our seahorse. Okay, so now I'm going through, so I'm skipping this first bead and I'm only going through 2, the next 2 beads. So we're just creating a herringbone curve like we did yesterday. And then I'm going to pick up 1 more bead and I'm going to go up that entire line of 6 beads, I believe, on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 5 beads, sorry. My bad. Okay, so that is his first little fin on the back. Okay. So now we're going to sew through the 11 right here and the 8-0, but not this 11. Okay, so just the first 11 and the 8-0. We're going to add 2 more 11s. And we're going to sew up to through those 3, through this 1. So you should be exiting right before the 8-0. Okay, so you're going to be sewing through 4 beads in total. And then we're going to do his front flipper. So go ahead and exit that very first bead there. So you should have 2 near his head and you're coming out the first one. Remember, we added 3, so we're coming out that very first bead there, okay? So just come out that first bead next to his side, okay? And we're gonna pick up 3 more beads, 3 more 11-0s. And we're gonna go down the next 2 beads on the, so we're just turning straight into the second bead that is there, okay? And then we're gonna go through that 8-0 again. Trying to not get looped on his head here, okay? I've done it too many times. Now we're gonna go up the 2 on that side. So the one that we were originally coming out of, plus the first one of the group of 3 that we just added, okay? And now we're gonna pick up 1 bead. And we're gonna go through 3 beads here. So don't go into that 4th bead, okay? Just go in 3, okay? And then we're gonna go up 2 again on that. So the bottom one and that one. And that's the one we just added right there. Don't go into that one. Okay. Pull that. Okay. And now we're gonna pick up 4 beads. And we're gonna go up through 3, sorry, skip the one that's the next one and go up 2. So skip the end and go up 2, okay? And it's gonna kind of go around that little bead right there. See that? Okay. And then if we look here, you're gonna skip the first bead and enter into the 2nd and the 3rd bead. So the 2nd and the 3rd bead on that side. Okay. Then we're going to pick up 3 beads. And we're going to enter in, so we're going to skip this one right here. and we're going to go into the next 2 beads. So you're skipping that one and you're going in the next 2, okay? And then we can sew through this first little middle bead here, okay? So go ahead and take a shortcut through there, okay? And sew down the next 2 beads on the inner part of his flipper, okay? Trying to think what it was called, flipper. And then we're going to pick up 2 more, and we're going to go into the very next bead plus 1. Okay, so the next 2 beads. Take a shortcut through that second bead that's in the middle there. Go down those end 2. And this should be anchoring those central beads into your flipper. Okay, and then we're just going to pick up 1 more just to make the point right here. And then you can sew all the way back up. And then we're going to move forward into to work on his head, okay? So go ahead and sew forward until you get to this first neck bead right here, okay? Okay, so you should be coming out of the first bead at the base of his neck. We're going to pick up 2 11s and we're going to sew into the opposite hole of the superduo. So I'm on the left hand side here. I'm going to sew into the right hand side of the superduo, and I'm going to go through his eye. So it should look like this, okay? So I've got 2 beads just kind of hanging out on the top right there at the moment. Now we're going to pick up 1 11. I'm going to go through the 8 0 on the end, and I'm going to pick up 1 more and go through it again from the same direction. Okay, and this is like his little beak. If you don't want yours to have a little beak, you don't have to do that one, but I just think it looks better with it, okay? And then pick up 1 more 11 and go through his eye and the superduo. Then we're going to pick up another 11 0, and we're going to sew into, see these 2 that are right here? We're going to sew into that first one right there, okay? Oop. Don't get caught around his flipper. So you should have like a little V thing going on right here, okay? Then we're going to sew into this superduo that's right here, that first superduo. And then we're going to sew back out the other direction on the other side. Okay. You're going to sew into his neck bead right there, that lower. Can be a little tricky to get into it. That lower neck bead. which I managed to get my thread looped around myself. Okay. And then into the 8/0 that's right here next to his head, and into the super duo. But try not to go into his eye. Okay, so we're just going through the top 8/0 and the super duo. Okay, and then we are, if you kind of pull, what you want is you want these two to kind of share the neck. So you want his head kind of centered with the upper and the lower 8/0 there, okay? All right, so I'm coming out the super duo right here. I'm going to pick up two 8/0s, sorry, two 11s. And I'm going into the other super duo and into that upper, okay, I can't get through there, okay. So kind of center those. They should look a little bit like eyebrows, or kind of on top of his eye, okay? Go ahead, go into that first 11 after the super duo. And then again, go into that lower neck bead and move forward. Okay, so that's going to kind of stabilize his head for us. And then we can move forward to his first of the three, going around his shoulder here, and do his other flipper. Okay. So I'm just going to get over there, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so because last time we approached from the bottom, this time we're approaching from the top. So you actually need to go through the first two of those three that go around that 8/0. So go through the first two. Then you're going to pick up 3 seed beads, and you're going to go into the last one there. Okay. And then you're going to go through the 8/0, and you're going to go through the first 4 beads that are there on his flipper. Okay, so I went through the 8/0, and then I went through these 4. I have 2 on this side, I have 4 on this side, okay? I'm going to pick up 1, I'm going to go through those 2. And then I'm going to go up. I'm going to skip this first one here, and I'm going to go up 3, okay? You're going to pick up 4. You're going to skip the next bead, and you're going to go through the 2 at the bottom. Actually, you can just go through 1 at the bottom if you want. I'm just going to go through 1. Okay, and those 4 should sit around that 1, if you recall from the last time. Now I'm going to go into I'm going to skip 3, and I'm going to go into the next 3 beads. So 1, oops. 2, 3. And then I'm going to pick up 3. I'm going to skip the next bead, and I'm going to go into 1. Okay, so those are going to sit around that one. And then I'm going to pass through this middle bead right here. our first middle bead that's closest to his body. And just wherever it pops out, you're gonna sew. So I'm coming out the one, 2, 3, I'm skipping 5, okay, and I'm going into the 6th bead, the 7th, and the 8th. So I should now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on this side and 4 on this side with 2 in between, okay? Here we're going to pick up 2, go straight into the next bead. I'm going to go up 2. No, I'm going to go up 1. So straight into the next bead there. And then you can pass through that second sideways bead. Okay. And then I'm going to pass down these 3. And we're going to add our very last bead. And then I'm going to sew up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? All right, so now we just have to come down here, do his other back flipper, and then we can do his underside. So work your way down through the next 4 11-ohs. And right here, you're going to pick up 2 more 11s, and you're going to sew into the 8 and the 11 and the super duo. So I'm going into the, so I'm skipping this 11 right here. I'm going into the 8 and the 11. And I'm going through the super duo. All right. So his back fins, the formula is 3, 3, and 1 are the number of beads that we're picking up. So we're going to move into the first. So we only have 2 beads for his back here. Okay. So like I said, the formula is 3, 3, 1 for his back flippers. So we're going to pick up 3 beads, and you want the extra bead on the outer side. Okay, so 3 beads, we're going up 1, go through that super duo, and then we're going down 2. Okay. Then we're going to pick up 3 again. We're going down 2 right here on the outer side of his body. And then we're going to go down 3 on the inner side of his body. Or his flipper. Okay. And then we just need to add 1 for the bottom, and we can make our way all the way back up again. So up the whole side there. Okay. So that is his flippers completed. His head is completed. Now we just need to do his body. If you don't want, if you're going to put this on like a bracelet or something, you don't need to do the underside. It does make him stand up more, like see the, you know, So if you're just going to put it on something flat, you don't have to do the underside. But if you want it to have a little bit of dimension, or you want his fins to see the difference here, like his fins are flat on the ground here, and here he's kind of a little bit more raised up. So it's really up to you how you want to do this. So if you're done, then you're done, and that's it. But if you want to do the underside, then keep watching. Okay, so once we finished our fin here, we want to make our way over to this middle 8-0 that's sitting right here. So go ahead and go through your super duo one last time if you can get through there. This poor bead has so much thread in it. Okay, you might need to switch to a thinner needle if you're having difficulty getting there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move through the 11, the 8, the 11, the 8, and then turn and go up through there, okay? Because I'm on an outer hole at the moment. Actually, you can skip that 11. If you skip the 11, it'll help it stand out a little bit more. So I'm just going to skip the 11 there. And then I'm just going to turn straight into that 8, and I'm going to flip my turtle over. So you want the bit we've been working on is the top, okay? So if you get confused, like, is this the top, is this the bottom, you can look at his head, and then you should be able to tell, like, if it's the top or the bottom, okay? So flip him over, and you're going to pick up the second color of 8-0. And I'm coming out right here. I'm going to go into that 8-0 again with the second color. So it's just going to sit on top like that, okay? Okay, so I'm coming out from the 8-0 that's right underneath. We just added our top 8-0. So I need to sew into that 8-0 on the top just to turn around. Okay, and now we're going to pick up 2 11s, a super duo, and an 8-0. Okay, so 2 11s, a super duo, and an 8-0, and we're going to sew. So we have 3 8-0s here, one here on the edge, one here, and then one here which is his shoulder. We're going to sew back towards ourselves through the middle 8-0. So back towards the bottom. And here you're going to want to keep your thread up out of the way, okay? Just so you don't get tangled up. Then you're going to sew through the 8-0 again, going away. Okay, so we're just kind of attaching that on right there. Go ahead and pick up another super duo and sew into his shoulder bead. Okay. Now we're going to pick up another super duo. We're going to sew into the second hole of this super duo. Okay. I know it looks kind of crazy right now. Pick up another super duo, sew into the second hole of this super duo. And pick up one more super duo. And, whoops, I just dropped him. Okay, and you're gonna sew into the second 11-0 and the 8-0 at the bottom. Being careful not to get hooked. Okay, so we should have like half of his stomach, okay? And this is kind of loose and wiggling around. All right, so now we're gonna pick up our 2 11s. Sorry, no we're not. We're gonna pick up 1 11 and we're gonna go into that hole on the superduo right there, okay, with our 111. And then we're going to pick up a superduo and go into the next superduo up. And pick up our last superduo. We're going to go into the other hole on the top superduo. Okay, so now it's starting to look a little more like something. We're going to sew through his shoulder. So I'm sewing away from his head, okay? So that 8/0 that's his shoulder, you're just going to sew straight into there. And here you're going to want to kind of give it a little bit of a tug and get him all sorted out. And then we're going to sew into the first hole of the superduo on this side. Pick up an 8/0. You're going to sew backwards through the 8/0 that's underneath here. So sew back towards his head. Okay. And go into that 8/0 again and into the next superduo. And then we're going to pick up one more 11 and we're going to sew into this 11 and the 8/0 at the bottom. Okay, and then you can give it all a tug. So here is our little turtle. I think he's really ever so cute. You can just reinforce and then tie off your threads. So I hope that you make this little fellow. I know he's a little more complicated than what we've been doing, but he is so worth it. He's adorable. And I'd love to see what colors you guys come up with, and let me know, share your pictures and all of that. Tomorrow we'll be finishing up. It's our last day, so we'll just be sewing everything together. And I have a little challenge for you as well. So I will see you then. Bye for now.